How does a country with the world's largest oil reserves end up with millions starving and fleeing? Venezuela's collapse drove over 7 million people to leave, with those left behind struggling to eat, not because of war or disaster, but catastrophic mismanagement. In this video, we'll uncover how Venezuela went from Latin America's richest nation to a cautionary tale, and what the leaders Hugo Chavez and Nicolás Maduro did to make it happen. Let's dive in. Venezuela sits on a gold mine of resources that could make it the envy of the world. It sits on 300 billion barrels of oil, the planet's largest reserves, enough to fuel prosperity for generations. Fertile plains and rivers like the Orinoco could feed the nation and power it with hydropower. Yet both lie underused. Gold, diamonds and iron hide underground, while Caribbean beaches and Angel Falls could draw tourists if crime didn't keep them away. It's like winning the lottery and tossing the ticket into a fire. So how did a nation this rich fall so far? Before Hugo Chavez, Venezuela wasn't perfect. Corruption was rampant, and oil wealth stayed with the elite while poverty grew. Oil money also made the currency so strong that local goods cost too much compared to cheap imports, shutting down farms and factories, what economists call a resource trap. Still, oil kept the economy afloat, hiding the cracks. In 1999, Hugo Chavez, a charismatic ex-soldier, stormed into power, promising to lift the poor. He delivered at first. Oil cash funded free clinics, schools, and cheap food, winning hearts in slums and villages. He'd sing, joke, and call out the rich on live TV. To millions, he was a hero, unbeatable at the polls. But beneath the applause, trouble brewed. Chavez's handouts weren't a plan, they were a gamble. He bet Venezuela's future on oil staying sky high forever, a bet Venezuela would lose. Pause for a second. How should a country like Venezuela handle oil riches? It's not rocket science, but it takes discipline. First, keep the oil industry healthy. Reinvest part of the profits in rigs, pipelines, and skilled workers to keep the cash flowing. Then split the profits wisely. Build the basics: roads, bridges, ports, and power grids. Without this, no economy thrives. Good infrastructure makes farming, factories, and tourism possible. Fund new industries, like helping farmers buy tractors or factories make goods. Helping small businesses grow creates jobs and diversifies the economy, cutting reliance on oil. Help people directly. Support pensions, school supplies, or healthcare. But keep it modest, enough to lift the standard of living, but without relying on oil forever. Save surplus cash in good years for when oil prices crash, avoiding painful cuts to schools or hospitals. Oil prices swing like a pendulum. In 2008, crude hit $140 a barrel. By 2016, it was under $30. Sounds obvious, right? Let's see how Chavez played this hand. Chavez didn't follow the playbook. He poured oil money into handouts, free housing, food subsidized clinics, making life better for the poor for a while. Venezuelans loved it, but it wasn't investment, it was a spending spree. The oil industry, Venezuela's lifeline, was neglected. Pumps broke, pipelines leaked, and when experts at PDVSA, the state oil company, warned production was slipping, Chavez fired thousands, replacing them with loyalists who are not properly qualified. By 2013, oil output was down 25% from its peak, starving the economy. Other industries were forgotten. Farms that could have fed a nation sat idle as oil paid for imported food. Factories rusted. Venezuela stopped making almost anything. Chavez kept the economy afloat by borrowing billions, piling up debt. When oil prices crashed in 2014, the economy wobbled. Chavez died in 2013, a folk hero to some, but he'd left a ticking bomb for his handpicked successor, Nicolás Maduro, to inherit. Maduro took power in 2013, stepping into a mess he'd helped Chavez create. Instead of fixing it, he made it worse. Oil production, already shaky, collapsed under his watch from 2.5 million barrels a day in 2013 to under 800,000 by 2023 as corruption and neglect drove skilled workers away. Maduro's economic moves were a disaster. He printed money to cover deficits, sparking hyperinflation that hit 1.7 million% in 2018. A loaf of bread went from a few bolivars to costing a suitcase of dollars, if you could find one. Price controls meant to keep goods cheap backfired. Businesses couldn't profit, so shelves emptied. By 2017, Venezuelans lost an average of 24 pounds a year because food wasn't there, a grim reality critics called the Maduro diet. When oil cash dried up, Maduro borrowed more, defaulting on debts by 2017. US sanctions that year cut off dollar access, tightening the squeeze, but the economy was already in freefall. GDP had shrunk by over 75% since 2013. Maduro blamed economic warfare, but his own choices like replacing experts with cronies did more damage. Where Chávez had charisma to mask his flaws, Maduro had none, turning a crisis into a catastrophe. Venezuela's collapse shows how even the richest resources can't save a nation from leaders who chase short-term cheers over long-term plans. Over 7.7 million have fled, and those left face a long road ahead. Recently, there's been a flicker of hope. Growth returned in 2022 and 2023, inflation eased, and oil production ticked up after sanctions relief. But don't be fooled. Poverty grips 70% of Venezuelans.